didn't want to be here. No, I didn't mean to come this far. What matters is where I go from here. So far. Someday I'll be alright. Someday I'll be just fine. But tonight I need you here. My heart 1,000 miles away, but it wants to love you in that way. Too many years bruised and beat, locked away. Someday I'll be alright.
Here comes another party! World War II! 3 left! 0!
But tonight I need you here. Wait for me, now I'm coming home. My heart will scream when it is home. Wait for me, now I'm coming home. My heart will scream when it is home. Yeah. Someday I'll be alright. Someday I'll be just fine. But tonight I need, yeah, tonight I need, yeah, tonight I need you here. I need you here. I didn't want to be here. I didn't mean to come this far. What matters is where I go from here. So far.
I'm Delmer Sanders. After we were fighting Japan, we weren't fighting in Japan, we were in Okinawa. And we were preparing to go land in Japan and fight the home folks, which would have been disastrous. They worry about, I think, 200,000 casualties from the A-bomb. It would have been about twice that many if we had landed, counting both sides. So we were prepared, I believe, to lose a division going in there. In China, we were close to a Japanese unit, they'd bring them over, however many they could take at a time, and we would go with them as guards and repatriate them to Japan. That's what we were doing there. Well, it was kind of strange. And we also, of course, stood guard with them, and they had to keep standing guard too. But they didn't have any rifles. We were there with them, but they shared their tea and whatever else they had, and seemed to enjoy our company. But they didn't act like enemies then. But these guys had been in China all the time. We'd been fighting the guys in the islands, so it didn't matter. I've been told that we probably could have bypassed all the islands and gone straight to Japan and done as well, because they would have starved not having any contact with the home island. And I don't know. They decided to go to island hop, and that's the way we got there.
My name's Hector Dominguez, and I serve in the United States Army. I was drafted from 1969, 2 years to 71. My Purple Heart I received it was in 1970 when I was in Vietnam. I was with 101st Airborne, 2nd of 501st Alpha Company Infantry. And at that time it was getting dark, and we were setting up and everything, and then we finally got set up, the OP and everything, and the command post was up in the middle, up in the hill. So we all set up, and then we got hit that night at midnight. They came through where we're at. That's when I got wounded. I got hit in my legs. They threw we call it RPG round, hit a tree. I went down in the concussion. When I came through, I thought my legs were gone because I couldn't feel them. They were full of shrapnel on my arm, and I couldn't see. I would go like this, cover one eye, and I couldn't hear at all. And I was looking for everybody, and everybody pulled back. And I was left up front by myself, so I just played dead, like I was dead right there, while the tracers were flying all over. And I stayed there till everything settled down, and the squad leader came looking for me and found me. One of the other squad leaders, and he found me, and he thought I was being captured, and all this time I thought the other guys had been captured. And I have never thought that I was going to make it back, and that's where I got wounded. We got all the wounded, we got pulled up in the hill, we were in the CP, and we didn't get medevac the next day at 9 o'clock.
I was here when it was being built, okay, and that was 10, 15 years ago. It's not ostentatious, it's not gaudy, it's somber. And yes, it's got the sayings of what we remember some of our leadership of Franklin Roosevelt, Dwight Eisenhower, and others who were, Harry Truman, who were in civilian occupations, and what they had to say. And those civilians were much more attuned to the world than today's civilian leadership.
My name is Gene Staley, and I was a seaman first in the U.S. Navy in World War II. I could have been a yeoman. They wanted to try to give it to me and put me on up, but I could smell the writing on the wall, see the writing on the wall, because the ranks I had would have been frozen. You know, to tell how long I'd have been in. I went in at 17. my parents wouldn't sign any earlier till I graduated from high school. That was their goal, me graduating from high school. So I quickly got out of high school, then I joined the Navy. Went in the first week in January of 1945. And I got to Camp Elliott after my furlough home, or leave home. And muster one morning, they hollered, "Staley, Gene, front and center." I thought, oh, what in the world have I got into now? I got up and they said, "Report to Lieutenant so-and-so down at Building 16. So I thought, man, what have I done? What have I done? Got down there and he said, "We've been going over your records. You've got the talents and background that we need, so we're putting you in the office." So that's where I stayed. Then I got shipped to Treasure Island, if you know where that is. That's in the bay between Frisco and Oakland. And that's where I spent the rest of my time there. That's a shipping and receiving station. Guys coming in from overseas, going out from overseas. And my duty, I call myself radar. I handled the records and took care of their records and their pay and their leaves and furloughs and all that. And I asked for sea duty 2 different times. I felt guilty because I had buddies going over and buddies didn't come back. And I had a guilty conscience. So 2 different times I asked for sea duty and it was turned down. And they said, "No, here's where we need you and here's where we're going to keep you." So that's where I stayed. And I had good duty.
Okay, my name is Ascension Calderon, and everybody calls me Chon Calderon. And I was they asked me to start. They called me to the service in December of 1942, and I had the luck of getting assigned to the Air Force, Army Air Force at that time. And after going through basic training at Wichita Falls, Texas, then I went, they sent me to an airplane and engine school right there at the same place. The wisdom of the Army at that time was they give you an aptitude test, right? I was better at clerical work, but I had been in the restaurant business when I was a young kid and I loved cooking, so I said, no, I want to be a cook. So they sent me to an airplane and engine school, and I did quite well. I graduated from there, and that was my profession, including a propeller specialist, and that was my work with the Air Force. And then they sent me to China, Burma, India, and I stayed over there over 2 years, working as a airplane mechanic, and sometimes they would get your services for a crew chief, because I had a lot of C-47s, which were transport planes. At that time, President Roosevelt made a huge pledge, and everybody working there got the Presidential Citation for that, to push a lot of the materials and personnel and food and everything from Casablanca, where they landed, and then all the way to Cairo and Karachi and further on. And I was at Dum Dum right near Calcutta, India. And sometimes they assigned me a trip to be the crew chief of a C-47. I had a identical twin, and during our childhood, during our dating thing, the girls would know which was which, you know. Anyhow, we were identical, but when the war started, he decided without telling me, that he would enlist in the Air Force. And he did, and he was very good at being a pilot, and he got trained and he received his commission as a pilot. Well, going back to India, I was working at India, like I told you, and I was assigned a trip to Bombay. So I went to Bombay, and not knowing, my twin brother came through at that time, and he went looking for me. And here I was over at Bombay, and he came looking for me, and we used to live in tents, and 6 people to a tent. And when my twin brother walked in as a first lieutenant, they started saying, what in the world did this guy do? You know, he goes to Bombay for a couple of days, comes back as a lieutenant, you know. Anyhow, that's the story. I thought it'd be amusing. We never got to see each other, the sad part.
It won't be long till all the little boys grow up and they leave home, grab the closest gun, a legacy their fathers begun. They are too young to understand how a bullet could ruin a man, so all of the mothers lighting candles to the Virgin Mary and praying for something to change.
My name is Jose Gutierrez. I was inducted in the Army on 1951. I served for 51, 52, and part of 53. I was in combat with trying to push the enemy, and one of my friends got killed, and we had to get him out of the mountain to bring him down to our line, and 4 of us were trying to get him down to the back line, but he was so heavy. He used to weigh about 250 pounds, and he was a very nice guy. I remember I was holding him from one of the legs, and I was real tired, and I even have to get the cuff of his pants on one leg with my teeth, and I was kind of nervous. I have to confess that I was kind of sick, and I started laughing and real loud, like laughing and crying at the same time. And one of my friends, the one who was holding the left leg, I was holding the right leg, and he just to call me. He says, Gutierrez, what's wrong with you? And so the guy slapped me on my face a couple of times, so trying to wake me up or something like that. And so I was okay for a moment. And we get him up on the mountain, and one of the guys says, okay, Gutierrez, let it go. So we tied him up from his arms and his legs with the field jacket and with a shirt on his legs, tied him up, and we let him roll down the mountain because he was so heavy and he was already dead, so it just doesn't make any sense to be carrying him down. So we just let him go down, rolling down the mountain. So every time I remember that, I got sick because he was a very good friend of mine.
My name is Nazario D. Flores, and I served here in the States. I served 11 months in Vietnam. We were sending supplies to the front lines, and a lot of the guys here used to say that we guys had it made in the quartermaster. So, but it's not true. We had a very dangerous job, and we had to work together. The front lines and the supply guys. We had to work together to keep up with to do a good job. Well, when I came home, it was kind of hard at first to get used to back to civilian life, and I had a little bit of a hard time because I came back a little messed up. But in time, it got better. So I can say I'm not completely well, but I'm doing pretty good. I'm grateful for having the privilege and honor of coming and seeing these great memorials and exchange of the guard. Just to be here and bring back some memories, see what the government done for us as veterans. I'm really, really grateful for that.
You grew up counting the stars, guided by an innocent heart. For sure it took long to learn love makes us strong, and there ain't nothing wrong with feeling broken. You walk through the dark hours alone, hoping that someone would save you. Mistakes that you made, you won't take to your grave. So let's spend this moment like we used to. And it's okay to cry, 'cause you still have a friend who won't judge you or try to heal your wounds that need time. So stay down if that's where you won't have a single care. There's nothing to hold on to here.
I went in August of '43, and I lasted until the end of November when they let me out of '45, after being on hitting Saipan just 9 days after D-Day in Europe. We had our own D-Day in Saipan, and then hit Iwo Jima, of course, the next year, February 19 of 1945. I tried to volunteer, but they were looking for older. I was 18, and they were looking for somebody 20 or 21 and officer material. So I had to wait till I was drafted, and then got a chance for the Marines. I wanted to be a Marine since I was, 10 or 11 years old. I had a brother who had gone in.
I'm Monroe Ratchford, and I'm from Oneonta, Alabama. Everybody knows where Oneonta is. There's one in New York also, but this one is from Alabama, and I'm the pride of Alabama. And I'm also the pride of the Air Force. That's the one that reared me, so to speak, and my sons. But today is a special day in my life because being a part of the Air Force, being a part of the services that protect the American people, is the United States Air Force. We control the skies of the world. And I'm proud to have lived 30 years of my life in its service to its country. And so today, thank you for visiting this memorial with me. I think it's the most fantastic symbol of air superiority and technical beauty. No other monument I've ever seen compares with it.
I'm Joy Pierce. I was in the Army in 1954 to 56. It was the Korean era, but I was not in combat. I was at Brooke Army Medical Center 1 year, and then I spent my second year at Fort Hood, Texas. And then I got out of the service and later joined the reserves. And I was in the reserves in Dallas. My profession requires an internship for a 5th year after college, and the Army has one of the best programs in the United States, and I was accepted into that program. Professionally, I enjoyed being in the burn wards at Brooke Army Medical Center because we really did accomplish a lot there, and I enjoyed helping out in that area. And then fun-wise, there were 5 military places in San Antonio, and we could go on weekends and take space available flights. And one weekend we went to Bermuda, so we got to do a lot of fun things like that.
Do you see these people up there? Honor Flight was started because of them. World War II.
My name is Bernice Stage, but known as Bonnie Stage. And I want you vets to know that I could never compare in doing what you have. I was a home front person, and I worked with the paraplegic, and they were outstanding fellows, but you guys deserve everything, just everything. And thank you so much for being there for each and every one of us. I can't thank you enough.
Hi, I'm Bill Gottfried. I joined the service in October 1942 I just got out of high school, and I enlisted in the Army Air Corps. I originally went to aircraft mechanic school in Gulfport, Mississippi. There they gave us flight physicals, and from there on, I was going to be an aerial gunner, and I wound up on the B-29, the one that dropped the atomic bomb. I got over on Saipan, and I believe it was October of 1944. I was wounded over Tokyo. We were on a Pathfinder mission. We were 2 planes. We went out a half hour before the rest of the formation where we would light up the target. We went in at 5,000 feet. The plane in front of us got hit with 2 kamikazes. We flew between the wreckage. And by then, the searchlights picked us up, which was very scary. And then the anti-aircraft started to let us have it. Our number 3 engine was shot out, which is on the left side. Being I was a left waist gunner, I got hit in the head with shrapnel. And I could not leave my gun position till we got off the mainland of Japan. I flew a total of 41 combat missions over Japan, the mainland of Japan. Plus I bombed Iwo Jima and also Okinawa, which we did not get credit to go home, only the missions over the mainland of Japan. Even though we were shot at, probably lost some men. I finished up 41 missions, and they put me on a ship to Pearl Harbor. And the day I hit Pearl Harbor, the war ended. I was supposed to go home originally for about 2-3 weeks, I can't remember, and report back to Muroc Field, California, to be a gunnery instructor for 6 months, and then be put into a pool where they form up crews again. Thank God the war ended and that didn't happen. They sent me a telegram saying I should stay another week or 2, I don't remember, report back to Greensboro, North Carolina for discharge, and I was discharged. I obtained the rank of staff sergeant, and I was in exactly 37 months. I got out in November of 45, and that's my story.
Humphrey Awayo Jr. Actually, it's Humphrey Alex Awayo Jr. And I served in the Marine Corps 1953 to 1955 active service, and 6 years in the reserves. Went overseas in 1953, went to Okinawa, and I was a naval gunfire, so my outfit was radio operator. And most of my time was spent in Hawaii. A little World War II camp that was left over outside of Pearl Harbor. It was called Camp Catlin, and a bunch of Quonset huts. And that's where I was stationed. My daughter was coming here to meet me, but also she brought my granddaughter, and I didn't know my granddaughter was coming. So yeah, I was surprised there. The trip was good, very interesting. I like the Marine Corps Memorial, and I like the changing of the guard. That was interesting. And the food was good, and met some good friends, and I'd like to do it again sometime. The changing of the guard is the one I like the best.
Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? I am Staff Sergeant Massey of the 3rd Infantry Regiment, United States Army. Guard of Honor to the unknown soldier. The ceremony that you are about to witness is the changing of the guard. In keeping with the dignity of this ceremony, it is requested that everyone remain silent and standing.
My name is Norberto Valles. I served in the Central Pacific, the Marianas, Marshall Islands, China, Japan, Far East. My dad first signed for me while I was still 16 years old because I love the ocean. The ocean still calls me. And he signed for me while I was still 16, and they said as soon as you turn 17, you'll catch a bus to San Diego for boot camp, and I did. 5 days after my 17th birthday, I was going to boot camp in San Diego. I was still considered a World War II veteran, although I didn't see no action or anything, activity then. And then I got out just before the Korean War ended, and then I got called back in as a reservist because I joined the inactive reserves. Didn't have to go to meetings or nothing, but that was enough to get me called back into during the Korean War, and I was back in for another year and a half. One other thing that really stood out to me, I was just when I was in China, there was during the Chiang Kai-shek, they were smuggling guns and stuff. The most that has never left my mind. I've seen a guy, they were running guns on the Wangpu River there in Shanghai, and they have these little sampans and junks. They call the bigger ones, we call junks. They suspected up on the bridge, you know, because we were anchored there, and my battle station and duty station was as a quartermaster up on the bridge, so I'd hang around there even when we weren't deployed or anything. And I seen a junk coming down the river, and security pulled them, asked them to pull over to the side to a dock so they could check to see if they had any guns. And when those would say that when they swung the sail to pull over to the dock, it smacked the one of the security guys. There was two on the side, and he went into the Wangpu River, and they say anybody that goes into the Wangpu River doesn't come back up. So they still continued on to the dock. As soon as they got up to the dock, the security pulled out his pistol, and the guy was begging with his hands wrapped around the security guys, begging him for his life. I could tell that's what he was doing, but he shot him anyway and just kicked him over the side. So that was jury and sentence right there and then. And in execution, they don't even have to report it. So that as a young kid, 18 years old, I remember that the most. And before that, I had been deployed, and my 18th birthday was crossing the equator off of Truk Atoll. We had been at sea for over 2 months, and when we stepped ashore, I guess I had my sea legs. I felt insecure, and waiting for the deck the ship to roll or something. It didn't, almost fell over, but it didn't take me very long to get squared away.
Fred Ballack, and I served in the Pacific, except for a few stations in the United States on continents. I was a motor transport officer, and I went out of that in Vietnam. In the 1st Marine Division, I was logistics operations officer, which dealt with logistics as opposed to planning. Back in the 43, they used to have on the movie screens a newsreel, and we're watching the newsreel and the newspapers, and I saw pictures of Marines bobbing up and down on the waters off of Tarawa. And I said, I'm going to go and avenge those guys, and I did.
My name is Benjamin H. Garcia. I served in Korea during the war, and then I came home, and when I came home, before I was a draftee, and after that, when I came home again to the States, I signed for another year to serve. After I signed for another year, I was sent to Nevada for the atomic tests, and I served on 2 of them. One was dropped from a plane at Frenchman's Flats, and the other one was supposed to be on Yucca Flats. So we were ready on the trenches, and the countdown was down to 0 and nothing happened. So they canceled that, and because it was too long to understand or find out what was wrong with the bomb or whatever it was, they didn't went off. I was three years in the service, from 9 November the 2nd, 1950 to October 21st, 53. And I was discharged at that time.
Thank you. I'm a Korean War veteran, and I just want to give you a little bit of information on how the good old GI know-how can make things work. I was a forward observer for an 81 mortar platoon. All of the officers and I was a replacement for the 40th Division. All of our officers were West Pointers. The one that we had for the mortar platoon, he come out and said, we didn't even see a mortar at West Point when we went through. He said, I'm going to take the book and I'm going to go in the bunker and I'm going to read it and I'll come out and ask questions, and when I think I can take over the platoon, he said, I will. However, if I'm making a mistake, he said, call me off to the side and don't make a fool out of me in front of everybody that's here. Well, the forward observers at this time used what was called an M10 plotting board, about the size of the big plate on the table. It was in grid squares about 1/8 of an inch. A pencil mark would be about 25 yards. So it don't take you long to figure out why you're not hitting the target. So the lieutenant said, I know how to fix this. So he was gone about 2 days. He come back with a whole Jeep load of artillery equipment. The artillery used a fan about like so on a plotting board in 4-inch squares. So that tells you how the accuracy improved on our 81 mortar crew. But there were a lot of things that GIs do that help us win the conflict. The enemy, as a general rule, if his weapon is broke, he's done. We will figure out a way to make something work. And that's why we're still #1 in the world. Thank you.
We are going to step back into Asian, or the European theater, Pacific theater, 1943. We're going to step back into the Korean theater, 1952. Vietnamese theater, 1970. When these gentlemen were in their combat zones, one of the greatest things that they looked forward to was a thing called mail call, where they'd get letters from home, written from family. And so what we are going to do, we're going to have us an old-fashioned mail call. So if I can have, when you hear your name, sailors, soldiers, airmen, jarheads, make sure you get your hand up so we can get the delivery. Sal, Alanis.
I'm a proud reminder